this is Mrs. Smeckens, and this is the last lesson in our series on comparing texts. We started the series by using a T-chart to compare two fictional stories, and we looked at the different story elements in comparison. In the last lesson, we switched gears, and we looked at nonfiction texts and topics, like comparing going to college right after high school versus going right into the workforce. And we realized that we still need categories of comparison, but we have to infer them. They're not automatic like they are in literature. Well, in this lesson, I would like to remind you that readers don't just read two texts, have thoughts, share them orally in discussion, and leave it at that. They also have to be able to write their comparisons, articulate their thinking about two texts or topics in writing. So I want to review how it is that we turn a T-chart into a written product. Because remember, the T-chart not only works great for the reader to collect information and make the comparisons, but that same tool can then be a pre-write for the writer. And so we know each row becomes a paragraph. Remember, each category is pink. It's an inference. So whether the category is a story element or it's a topic, a label that we inferred, every one of those categories becomes the gist of the topic sentence for the paragraph. Categories are topic sentences, and then the supporting detailed sentences for the paragraph are all of the little details that you looked at, and you point out whether they're similar and or different in different facets. Okay, so using the content from the last lesson when we looked at going to college and facts and details about going right into the workforce, we kind of came up with two inferred categories. One, when we were comparing those two concepts, was, well, you grow personally, you develop personally, whether you go to college or you go into the workforce. It's a little different here and there, but growth happens. And so I want to write that paragraph. And then I want you to help me write the second paragraph, where we looked at in both places, whether it's college or it's at work, that you build relationships. Some kind of networking is always happening. And again, it's a little different between college and the workforce, but that category, it happens in both places. So we'll write a second paragraph together. Now, when writing these paragraphs, remember that the idea of the category becoming the topic sentence, so therefore the first sentence of the body paragraph, okay? But this is the body paragraph. This is a body paragraph. These are two future body paragraphs. You do realize that we would normally have had an introduction. We haven't talked about it, but you first have to write an introduction where you introduce the two topics you're comparing. And then normally in the introduction as well, not only do you tell me you're looking at these two topics, but you also often introduce the categories of comparison. You tell me at the end of the introduction what facets you're going to be looking at. Do you see it? Do you see how the T-chart, again, it's not just for the reader to understand and collect information, note take, but it also helps the reader when it's time to write. Okay, so as we review how to write this paragraph and you look on your screen, remember the category will become the fodder for the topic sentence. The supporting details will use all of the little green and yellow sticky notes. Okay, but more importantly in this lesson, what I'd like to do is really shore up the writing that's coming out of the T-chart. When we did it with literature, it was a little trite, it was a little formulaic, and we were just kind of really working on, all right, this becomes a topic sentence, okay, say this in a sentence, use the word however, let's use both. I mean, we were just really being very robotic because we were just kind of figuring it out. Well, let's up the ante in this lesson. Let's expect better sentence structure. Let's look at stronger sentences, longer sentences. Let's look at our transition words. Let's really fine tune the fact that you don't go from detail to detail in a paragraph and say, and so, and then. No. Because what the reader needs from you is, are you saying that these two details are the same or similar? Are you saying these two details for this category are very different? Your transition tells them that. If you say similarly, you're putting two details together and telling the reader, hey, what comes after similarly is going to be something that is similar in both. But if I say however, then they know, oh, these are two very different details about this topic. So really be conscious of informing your readers. You want to make sure you're clear as to whether or not you're combining details or you're separating details. Okay. And so again, I'll do it first. I want you to watch me kind of execute this, and then I'll ask you to help me with the second one. All right. I don't think we need our anchor chart anymore, but I do need space to write. So I'm going to slide my T chart over, cover up our anchor chart, because we do need that information, right? Because the T chart is our pre-write. And now I've got room to write. Okay. So I'll put my thoughts there. And I'm going to use this whole first row of kind of personal growth and development. So just so you kind of remember the details that we had read in the previous lesson, that's kind of what we were looking at. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is kind of model how I go about plucking information and turning it into sentences, because it's not just kerplunk, kerplunk, kerplunk. All right, you got to think about it. You got to talk to yourself a little bit, right? I mean, I write it to myself 2 or 3 times in my head, even out loud, before I actually type it or write it down, because I just want to figure out how to say it best. Okay, so that said, I know I want my topic sentence for this first body paragraph to be about both places allow a person to grow personally, develop personally. Okay, and so I could say that. I could say, at college and at work, you grow personally. Okay. But can we say it any more sophisticated, right? Can we make it sound a little smarter? So I'm thinking this whole thing is about high school graduates who go to college or high school graduates who go to work. So what if we started this body paragraph like that? A high school graduate and will grow personally. Well, yeah, will grow personally at college or at work. A high school graduate will a high school graduate will continue to grow personally, whether at college or at work, right? How about that? A high school graduate will continue to grow and develop personally. Okay, so now I have opened the door to, this is a similarity, okay? And so I want to kind of be conscious of, okay, so how do we grow? Where do we grow? Let's start with in college, okay, or a college student. And so I'm gonna pop over here, and now I want to look for a specific way that you might grow in college. And I'm telling you, some of this yellow thinking voice detail about personal struggles, learning about yourself, that all helped me see how this was grouped together. That's really good fodder for the sentences that I'm about to write. So I want to talk about where in college do we grow personally? How do we grow personally? And I see this idea that it's discipline and it's perseverance through struggles, through personal struggles. You're learning about yourself. So maybe I'll say that. Something about in class, the whole idea of academic struggles, okay, may teach a college student, okay, may teach a college student, okay, now how to persevere, or may teach a college student discipline and perseverance. Okay, now, remember, these words, these details on green, they're the author's words. They came from the text. And so this is where I want to make sure that it's very clear what are my words and what are the author's words. And so this idea of discipline came right out of the text. That was a text detail, okay? And perseverance was also, and so I could put those in quotes too. Okay, so I've talked about growing in our discipline as a college student. Now I need to talk about how we grow in the real world job, okay? And I look up here and it's like, well, there's no discipline and there's no perseverance. I mean, I know we grow, but it's not discipline and perseverance. So it is not going to be a similar or a both or a likewise transition. It's going to be a however, because I don't have the same detail. I mean, it fits under growth, but here we're growing in terms of our likes and dislikes. We're growing in that we figure out what jobs we don't want when we join the workforce. And so I need to add that. So maybe I go to however, and remember, we are talking about jobs now. So you were on college, now you're talking about work, jobs. And so you want to remind the reader who we're talking about next. However, some real world jobs, okay, clarify what a young person doesn't want to do. Okay, so that's how we're growing. Remember, this is our topic sentence, grow and develop personally. However, some real world jobs clarify what one doesn't want to do for the rest of his life. Okay, jobs you don't want to have. Okay, so now I've got more to say. I've still got some more details, but I'm constantly rereading and seeing where I am and what makes sense. So let me just read aloud for a minute, and then we'll figure out where I need to go next in this paragraph. Because remember, paragraphs not only need a common category, but you need similarities and differences in that paragraph. A high school graduate will continue to grow and develop personally. Academic struggles may teach a college student discipline and perseverance. However, some real-world jobs clarify what one doesn't want to do for the rest of his life. So we're growing, we're learning from being on the job, or we're growing and learning personally from being at school. Okay, so now I need to look for a similarity because that was a difference. So I definitely need a similarity. And there are probably more differences. I could keep going, but for the sake of time, let me try to get a similarity in. And one of the things I realized was this whole idea of soft skills, the idea of communication skills, work ethic, initiative. That's something that is part of both arenas, right? In college and at the workforce. And so I need to somehow transition into that and then point out the similarities between it. And so maybe it would be something like, while everyone continues to grow, or another way someone continues to grow is in his soft skills. And then I'd probably say what soft skills were, maybe in parentheses, like initiative, like communication skills. So how about something like that? While everyone grows soft skills, and I'll probably put it in parentheses, like initiative, I'll just abbreviate it, initiative and communication. Okay, again, I'm just abbreviating. Okay, like initiative and communication. Now I want to point out that in college, you're growing it, but you have a few extra years because you don't have a job yet. So you don't have to impress anybody with your skills yet. While everyone grows soft skills occur in college is several additional years to develop these traits, these qualities, okay? While everyone grows soft skills like initiative and communication, a person in college has several additional years to develop these traits. Whereas an employer expects an employee to possess them immediately. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm saying that we have soft skills in both, and then I'm showing just a subtle difference. So there's similarities across the board. They're similar in some facets and a slight difference. And then there's just total opposites and differences. Well, this paragraph really kind of shows us that there's a lot of similarity even with just small, subtle differences along the way. Okay, before I stop, let's point out a few things. I have my topic sentence based on my category. Okay, now let's also look at some of my transition words, because good writers don't just say and, also, so. Okay, we transition to show when things go together and when things are different or contrasting. Academic struggles may teach a college student discipline, however, some real world jobs, while everyone is doing this, okay, whereas an employer expects that. You see my transitions? Okay, wait. Let's do one more thing before we switch. And that is make sure that we were weaving details between the two topics within this paragraph. Remember, you don't want to kerplunk all of the college details first and then all of the workplace details second. You want to weave, all right? Good readers weave the details. So all things college are going to get the red here. Academic struggles, that's referring to college. Yep, college right there. Discipline, all right? Anything else college, everyone grows. A college student has several years, whereas an employer. Okay, so now I'm going to switch and talk about work. Okay, and so however, some real world jobs clarify while everyone does this in college, whereas employer, employee, that's talking about jobs. See how we're kind of going red, blue. That's what you want to do. All right, help me with the next one. So as I remind you of what this next row is, okay, it's all about building relationships and networking. If you didn't start the topic sentence with, another thing is, if you didn't start it that way, how could you start this next paragraph? I started with a high school graduate will continue to grow. What else could you say to introduce college and work regarding relationships? I want you to be thinking about that topic sentence, and I'm going to change the chart paper. Okay, do you have any thoughts? Any thoughts coming to mind? We're building relationships. We're building relationships in both contexts. Can we just say that? Individuals build relationships, whether in college or at the workforce. Okay, so individuals build relationships, whether in college or the workforce. Okay, build relationships. That's what the topic is. That's what the category is. So it's got to be the first sentence. Okay, so now we're going to build relationships. Let's look at the workplace. Let's look at the workplace and the relationships. Where do we get those relationships? Where do we see those relationships? Let's look back at your screen for a second. I'll zoom back in. And where do we have relationships? With coworkers. And where do we have relationships in college? With peers, with friends, and professors and other places too. Okay, so how could we say that? How could we reference that? Because both of them, if you remember again, both of them talked about that you're exposed to a wide range of ages, backgrounds, and beliefs. So this is a similarity, a strong similarity between them. Let's just say that. And what transition word? Look back again. What transition words could you start with? Both. Right? You could just say both, right? Or you could say blank and blank are alike in this regard of building relationships, okay? And we're going to talk about that wide range of people. All right, so coworkers and college peers, okay? And so coworkers and college peers broaden an individual's what? What did it say that it did? An individual's exposure to different people, right? Broaden individuals' exposure to different, I think it even said, backgrounds, perspectives, and beliefs. And again, I could quote that if I'm pulling those details right from the text. Okay, so we want to use quotes when we can. Co-workers and college peers broaden an individual's exposure to different backgrounds, perspectives, and beliefs. Okay, so now what about relationships? Give me another detail. What could we play off here? One of the things I remember about the college was lifelong. Yeah, here, rest of your life, best friends. Do you have that? Rest of your life, best friends at work? Well, it didn't say you did. You probably have them as long as you have that job. And then when you don't have that job anymore, you don't necessarily have that friendship because you're not seeing them every day. So let's say something about that kind of friendship. Although college friendships, how would you finish that? Although college friendships may last a lifetime, okay? Coworkers might come and go. All right, good. Coworkers might come and go. Okay, or coworkers might end when your job changes, right? Something like that. So we're showing this idea of similarity in exposure and a little bit of differences in friendship. Seeing how we're doing this? Okay, and we could keep going. We could talk about the networking piece as well because you network in both places. But there's a subtle difference. And so you could write that sentence next. All right, so what we've been doing, whoa. Let's do one more thing before we close out this lesson. Let's make sure that we have similarities and differences and we wove our two topics together. So build relationships, that was the topic. And we have, we're combining coworkers and college peers both do this. However, although in contrast, this versus that, so we're definitely showing similarities and differences. You gotta make sure you got similarities and differences in every body paragraph. Always, always, always. Now we wanna make sure that we're weaving in between. Let's see, college was red. So college peers, college friendships, Now I'm gonna do coworkers, which is job, and co-workers here. Again, we don't want to kerplunk all of one side and then all of the other side. No, then you might as well write two separate papers then. Comparison weaves. Okay, so in this lesson, we reviewed how to turn a row into a paragraph, and we upped the ante just a little bit in our sentence structure, and we're really working on transitions that help the reader know when these details are similar or when they're different. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, if you were in Mrs. Smeckett's class, is go back to the T-chart you made after the last lesson. Remember I gave you more go to college versus go to work facts and details, and I said come up with at least 3 more groupings, okay? And there were many possibilities. There's no answer to what the grouping should have been. Well, I want you to go back to your T-chart, and now I want you to turn each row into a body paragraph. You're writing 3 separate body paragraphs. No intro, no conclusion. We don't need that yet. Just 3 separate body paragraphs. Really work on your transitions. Really make sure you have similarities and differences. Use different colors. Underline your transitions. Let's really be conscious of better paragraph writing, comparative thinking in writing. Now, if you didn't do the last lesson and you don't have a T-chart of the organized college versus work, I've got an example here for you. So you can use mine. Here is some possible categories. There are your paragraph supporting details. And so now use this to write 3 body paragraphs. If you were in Mrs. Smacken's class, that's what we'd be doing. But your teacher might have a better idea.